Okay. Good morning. Hello. Can everyone hear me? Excellent. All right. So, welcome everyone. Today we're going to talk about individual entities or particulars, or as chapter 7 is titled, things. So, let me start sharing my screen. Now, before we get started, just a couple of housekeeping things. I am getting whoops, I am getting an awful lot of questions about what to write your essay on. So we did kind of go over a few topics in the essay writing lecture, and somebody was very helpful in sharing some of those on the Discord server for people who were asking. So thank you for doing that. Um, to alleviate some of the worry, Uh, and I did mention that this would probably be okay in the essay writing lecture, but the one time I'll allow you to use ChatGPT in this class is to maybe generate some ideas for your paper, some paper topics, right? I did this last night myself, and shared what I got on the Discord server. That's it. That's the only time you can use it, okay? You can't use it for writing the paper, obviously, nor for quiz questions, etc. So, if you're really stuck and you haven't already spoken to me or someone else and gotten some advice on a topic for your paper, then you can do something like, open up ChatGPT. You can say, "Hey, ChatGPT, I'm in a class on metaphysics, epistemology, and theory of mind, and I need to write a paper, and I need an idea. Please give me a list." I asked for 5 suggestions. You can ask for 10. The suggestions that it will give are actually pretty good. So, um, I can read what I got, which I shared to the Discord server last night. As soon as it loads, sorry, it's still loading. Hmm. Never takes this long. Where is our class? There it is. Yeah, so the five topics that it suggested to me are the nature of reality. Is there a fundamental distinction between appearance and reality? That's certainly something we've talked about before. We've discussed it in terms of Kant's transcendental idealism, Descartes' skepticism, Plato's allegory of the cave. We've mentioned a little bit. Indirect and representative forms of realism, right? So analyze different perspectives on whether we can truly know the real world beyond our perceptions. The problem of other minds. How can we know that other minds exist? We haven't really gotten too much into this, but this is a problem raised by Descartes. Cartesian skepticism raises the possibility that maybe Descartes can't know whether he's dreaming or awake, and he can't know whether other minds are real as well, right? Personal identity and continuity. What makes you the same person over time? We do have a chapter on this that's coming up, but if you want to do this topic, you can read ahead. Epistemic justification and knowledge. What does it mean to have knowledge? I mean, we've considered various theories of knowledge. You could adjudicate between those. And of course, the mind-body problem, which we've talked about quite a bit. So that's 5 right there. Um, and you can do this. Like, I will allow you to use AI to bounce ideas off of and get an idea for a topic. You absolutely cannot use it to write the paper, okay? Yes, somebody, I don't have Discord running on my computer right now. Oh, thank you, Kaya. Yeah, Kaya's on it. Um, and you can do this yourself, right? Go on there, say, "Hey, ChatGPT, I gotta write a paper for my metaphysics, epistemology, and mind class. What should I do?" And you can, kind of narrow down the ideas, right? It's easy, April. But you have to be careful. It's the suggestions that it comes up with for these paper topics are pretty good. Um, I wouldn't trust it with an entire essay. I mean, not only would that be plagiarism, but it can be, it can go kind of screwy, right? So, um, and on that note, I doubt that many of the people here actually present today are the ones that I need to actually be speaking to about this. But there were a couple of fairly obviously AI generated answers on some of the quizzes that I've been marking. Um, no, I haven't really done anything about it so far because again, it's difficult to prove. And I'm in a position where I'm a bit like the detective who knows the crime has been committed and kind of knows who maybe did it, but doesn't have any proof, right? Oh, I'll open the Dropbox probably later this week, Joey, but definitely definitely hang on to it. Keep working on it. You know, maybe take a break from it for a few days, go back to it and see if you can make it even better? Anyway, about the quizzes and the AI answers, um, like I said, it's tricky to know what to do here, and it's frankly a pain in the butt having to deal with students who are unfortunately cheating. But it looks like what I'm going to have to do in future is this. Um, I'm just going to post ChatGPT answers to the quiz. So, like when I open up quiz 3, I will give ChatGPT the quiz. I will post some example answers, and I will just say, if your answer looks like this one, I'm giving you a 0. Um, and that's it. And that's that. So, yeah, the 22nd. That's right. So I don't think this is a problem for those of you that are regularly attending. And most of the quizzes were written by people, right? Most of them I'm fairly confident were. But there were a couple which were just so obviously AI that um I'm kind of giving those people a pass, but I'm also giving them fair warning. Don't do it again. Because next time I will, if I have to assign zeros or if I have to go every single quiz one at a time to check and do an academic misconduct report, I will. And I don't want to have to do that because, again, that goes on your permanent record. Again, probably the people who are here actually participating are not the ones doing this, right? Um, but this is just, I kind of have to say this. Okay. So now that that's over with, we can talk about things. Of course, last time we were talking about universals, right? Universals are, of course, universals stand or exist over and above particular entities. And the example that I kind of used, that I kind of beat to death, was the color green, greenness, right? There are many individual green objects, um, but greenness, and this is what we were talking about when we were discussing abstract reference, greenness uh, kind of exists over and above all the individual green entities. That's if you're a realist, right? If you're a strong realist like Plato, then maybe there's a form of the green, and that's where all green objects get their greenness from. Or maybe you're a moderate realist like Aristotle. and universals exist, but not over and above, not separately from individuals. They exist within the individuals. Of course, you could be a nominalist and deny that individuals exist. Maybe it's just a quirk of language, right? That's a green, that's a green, that's a green. So we talk about green as if it's a universal, but really there are just little instantiations of, little individual greens everywhere, right? And then, of course, you could also be a conceptualist and say that, well, green, the universal green is really just a concept. It exists in my mind, right? Not in the objects, not in the world. Um, but this week we're going to look at individual entities, particulars. And really, any object is a particular, from the very large to the very small, right? Um, the sun is pretty big, and that's a particular. The planets are all particulars. I'm a particular. I'm an individual. Uh, but even the stuff I'm made of could be considered a particular. We could be talking about a cell, a single cell, if we wanted to. These are all particulars. Any individual object is a particular. Yes, that is wrong. I mentioned in the lecture that that was a mistake. And the correct due date is in the course outline. It's November 22nd. So that's coming up, less than 20 days. But look, we'll probably maybe finish this a little early and maybe we can talk about it more, talk about the essay more. Now, one thing to be clear about when we talk about individuals is that we're not asking scientific questions, we're asking metaphysical questions. So we're asking questions like, what is it for some entity to be the kind of thing that it is? What is it that makes, I don't know, this particular plant the individual that it is? What is it that makes me the individual that I am? Right? Other questions we can ask concern the relationship between the individual and its characteristics. We could ask whether there is something more to an object besides its characteristics or its properties. And interestingly, some will say yes and some will say no. Today, we're going to talk about Aristotle and John Locke, who say, yes, beyond properties, there is some kind of substance that makes that is the individual, and somehow its various properties individuate it and make it the individual that it is. But not everyone agrees with that. Next time we'll see that Berkeley and Hume disagree with that position. So, yeah, when I'm asking questions about an individual from a philosophical point of view, right, I'm not doing something like what a psychologist would do, right? Studying my particular um, mind, or perhaps what a biologist would do, studying a particular body. I'm asking about what it is about minds and bodies that individuate the people that have them from other people, right? That's the kind of thing I'm asking about. Also, are some properties more or less important for identifying what a thing is? Very good. Yeah. Yeah, if you're not on Discord, get on Discord. It's a good place to talk about stuff. Okay. Ooh. More coffee. So the world is made out of individual things, and all of these individual things have unique characteristics that help us individuate them or identify them. And this is how the world is built up. Oh, is that link expired? Okay, here, real quick, let's pause because people really want to get onto the Discord server at the moment. So why don't I just get a new link? Although that link should not have expired. Oh, why can't I get out of here? There we go. I mean, I'm hearing people popping into the server, so do we need a new link or are people okay? Because I'm hearing people entering the server. That little bloop. Yes, April is here. Penguin Casino. Yasha. Okay, so you're all here. Very good. Well, Megan, let me see if I can help with that. Invite people. Let's just I'll just get this link, copy, okay, paste. So, if the link in helpful materials isn't working, this one. Yeah, I know. What the heck? Well, for now, I'm gonna close Discord because now everybody's joining and I can hear the bloop bloop noise and it's a little distracting. So I'm just gonna close it on my computer and let's resume. Okay. Right. So individual things make up the world. And we can still talk about individuals as individuals even though individuals might be made up of other components. Right? So like I can talk about my laptop right here that I'm using to deliver this lecture as an individual thing even though it's made up of smaller parts, right? It has a hard drive, RAM, there's a power supply, although it's not plugged in at the moment, right? But I can take the individual computer as basic when I'm asking questions about those kinds of individuals, that is. So individuals are what are basic on, on the approach that we're taking today. Individuals have properties or characteristics, and these characteristics belong to that individual, not to the parts. The example in Crumley is like, a tree being in bloom, right? I think he talks about the cherry blossom festival in Washington. I didn't even know they did this, but I guess they have some cool cherry trees there. Um, so if you go there and you see all the trees in bloom, you talk about the trees being in bloom, not necessarily the branches or all of the individual flowers. Are they kind of like those Japanese cherry trees? Oh, cool. Yeah, that'd be pretty sweet. Yeah, but that's one thing that I wish we had more of is blossoming trees. Um, Of course, in some of the parks around Ottawa in the spring, you do get the odd cherry tree and you get the odd apple tree, and they're quite beautiful. But I've always wanted to go to the blooming of the sakura, in Japan, and all the leaves like must be gorgeous. I don't know if I have. I've been to the Arboretum a few times. I don't know if I've seen the magnolias though. Well, I'll have to do that in the spring then. Oh yeah, like a gift. Oh wow, Remy, that's cool. So when all of you are having these amazing tree experiences, you probably say to yourself, "Wow, the trees are blooming or the trees are in blossom," right? Not like that blossom's blossoming and that blossom's blossoming and that blossom's blossoming and that one and so on and so on. No, you can say the whole tree is in bloom, not the branch, not the flowers, right? That's what we mean when we take individuals as basic. The individual is the thing that we're talking about, and it has these characteristics. Like the cherry tree is the thing, and the tree is what is in bloom. So these are the sort of three aspects of individuals. The individual is basic. The individuals are always of a certain kind: tree, human, coffee cup, you know. Um, and properties, the properties that they have, like being in bloom or being a philosophy professor, they belong to or depend on the individuals. So clear so far? It's very important. Like, I just want to make sure we understand that we take the individual as basic, even though it has other parts. Okay, good. Yes, I would say so. So, um, and we'll talk about this in a moment, right? It's still not exactly what we're doing when we're trying to understand the nature of individual things. It's not the only thing we're trying to do by trying to perhaps categorize them, but it is part of it. We'll see that when we look at Aristotle, which we're about to start doing, actually. Yeah, no, I mean exactly. Like if I want to talk about, it depends what individual I'm picking out from the world, right? I can look at the whole computer and be like, the computer is what I want to know about. But the computer might not be what I want to know about. Maybe the hard drive is what I want to know about, and that can be my individual. And the hard drive itself might be made of other parts, right? Um, if it's especially if it's one of those hard disk drives, it's going to have a spinny disk thing and a thing that writes on the disk, right? Or a solid state drive is going to have like, I don't know, isn't it basically flash memory? Yeah, floppy disk, is that right? Yeah, I remember floppy disks. Oh, making me feel old. Yeah, my dad has floppy disks. Yeah, oh, April, that's funny. But yeah, floppy disks. When I was young, when I was in school, um, well, in my grade one classroom, we had a Commodore 64, and you could play games on it. But the games um, were on floppy disks, and they were on like real floppy disks, the big ones, not the little hard disks. Yeah, a couple of you remember floppy disks, so um, it's crazy to think now. You got USB drives and the cloud and everything, and I was young. I want to play I don't remember what game, but yeah, you had to get the floppy disk and put it in the computer. Um, so yeah, I mean, it's whatever I'm talking about, that whatever individual thing I'm talking about, I can take that as basic. Um, so individuals are basic. Individuals are of a certain kind or category. We'll use the word kind. But think of a kind as something we can categorize, right? And then those individuals have characteristics or properties. Oh yeah. Yeah, I remember those too. You could get a CD in your cereal box or elsewhere. I remember when Guitar magazines. I used to read guitar magazines, and sometimes they would come with like a DVD or a CD, just a little one, and it would have like their extra content. So it would be like, in this issue of Guitar World, Steve Vai gives you a lesson on using your whammy bar, and it wouldn't be sometimes it would be in print, but sometimes it would come with a video, and the video would have Steve Vai doing his shreddies right on the guitar. Yep, that was it. I remember the CDs in textbook era. Nowadays, you can just scan a QR code and you get access to all of that. But yeah, back in my day, we used compact discs and we had to walk uphill to school both ways. Yeah, I'm getting old. All right, so let's look at Aristotle. What did Aristotle say about what makes individuals individuals? Well, in his work, The Categories, he kind of tries to systematize the things that make up the world, right? And Aristotle has a very, very different picture of the cosmos than we do, right? Aristotle, for example, only believed that there were four fundamental elements, right? Earth, air, fire, and water. Um, of course, nowadays we understand element a lot differently than Aristotle, right? Now we understand the chemical elements. So, hydrogen, helium, and oxygen, and carbon, and gold, and, all of the things on the periodic table. There's about 120 of them. So we understand elements as chemical elements. Aristotle understood them as fundamental elements. But of course, now we know that fire, for example, is not an element. It's a chemical reaction that produces heat and plasma. Aristotle also thought that the Earth was at the center of the cosmos. Um, Aristotle thought that, remember, all things have a telos, a final cause. And we talked about this last week. So the final cause of something tells you what it tends toward or what its purpose is. So if you asked Aristotle why rocks fall down, he might appeal to their telos. Rocks are heavy, and so they want to go down. Of course, Aristotle thought that the Earth was also at the center of the universe, so that heavy things were trying to get to the center of the universe. So that's why they went down, right? So very different picture of the cosmos than we have today. What's important for our purposes is what he has to say about individuals in the world. He called them primary substances. So I'm a primary substance, you're a primary substance. Any individual is a primary substance. And primary substances are the ultimate constituents of the cosmos, right? What is the world made of for Aristotle? The world is made of every individual thing that exists within it. And so that's one important thing that we need to take away from Aristotle. The other is that properties depend on primary substances. So Aristotle would say that you can't really have properties by themselves. Remember, properties exist in the objects. Universals, that is, universal properties. Universals are in the object, right? So if I have a blue ball, blueness is a universal, but it exists in the object, not over and above the object. But you can't have blue by itself for that reason. You can't have large by itself. You need a large object. So those are the two things that we need to take away concerning primary substance. So we sometimes call this the substance attribute framework, and it's one of the sort of fundamental theories of uh, of substances, of things. Um, let's try and make more sense of it. So individual things, and someone asked about this previously in the chat, whether we can categorize them. Yes, we can. Um, but we'll use Aristotelian terminology. So we will say that individuals belong to kinds, right? So I belong to the kind human. There must be some essence, something essential, which makes me a member of that kind. Now, for Aristotle and for Descartes and Kant, that thing was reason. For others, it's language. Although reason and language are like this, they're very, very closely intertwined concepts in philosophy, right? But I have some essence, say it's reason, that makes me a member of the kind human. What are some other examples? We want to come up with examples of kinds, and we want to place them into kinds by identifying some kind of essential attribute. So my essential attribute as a human being is reason. If you're an Aristotelian, that's what you would argue. What are some other examples? I need individuals belonging to kinds based upon some essential attribute or essential characteristic. So DNA, well, I'm looking for kinds of beings, right? But um but DNA uh might be an essential attribute. Like for Aristotle, reason is the essential attribute for the human being, but maybe there's something about our DNA that places us into that kind. Um, Likewise with emotions, although I suspect non-human animals do have emotions. Yeah, Justina, yeah, language. You know, Aristotle thinks that reason is essential to the human, but what he says is that we are zoon, econ, logon, and logon uh, from logos can mean reason. It can also mean speech, right? These ideas are very, very bound up together to the Greeks. If you have reason, you have speech, and if you have speech, you have reason, is kind of like how they looked at it, and how many philosophers have looked at it over the years. So yeah, Aristotle, Kant, Descartes say that the essential feature of the human being is reason. Yeah, April, mammal, vertebrate. Yeah, these are kinds of things, right? So all of the vertebrate creatures have various characteristics, right? I mean, some vertebrates are warm-blooded, like mammals, and some are cold-blooded, like reptiles and amphibians. Um, but the essential characteristic that makes them all vertebrates is that they have vertebrae, right? Um, Mammals that are strictly bipedal. Yeah, yeah, that could be an attribute that places humans into their own category. And indeed, there's an early human a species of early human, an ancestor of Homo sapiens that scientists have named Homo erectus, which means man who walks upright. Um, so one of the early ancestors who went like fully bipedal, we named it that, like because it was so perhaps essential to that creature and to subsequent kinds of people that have evolved since that time, right? So like I don't know. Okay. Yeah, plants so I have one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight, nine, 10, 11, 12, 13. Oh my goodness, I'm going to stop counting. Okay, so I have like about a dozen individual plants in my living room right now. Now, what makes all those individuals belong to the same kind? Um, well, yeah, they all produce their own sugars via photosynthesis, right? That's something that plants do. Well, not all of these plants have fruits. So, that's actually that would actually be what we call an accidental characteristic of plants rather than an essential one, right? Because we're looking at what makes a plant a plant. So you could say, I don't know what the right answer is, right? You can say, does photosynthesis uses cellulose, like the plants have like here I have I don't know what skin is made out of, but what plants are made out of is cellulose. Um, any number of things like this, right? Yeah, roots. Plants have roots. Um, So, yeah, the idea is that we can place individuals into kinds, into categories of kinds. Um, and we can do this because they have some essential attributes, but others are not essential. These are the accidental attributes I mentioned a moment ago. So maybe an essential attribute of being a plant is doing photosynthesis. That's one of the things that you need to do to be reckoned into plant kind, right? But there are some things that are inessential to being a plant, like like putting out fruits, right? Not all plants might do this, um, but they're still plants. Yeah, yeah, that's exactly right, April. The essential characteristics are what make the individual a member of that kind. And the accidental characteristics individuate it from other members of that kind. Yeah. So all plants with chloroplasts. I mean, some cactuses. I know that moon cactuses don't have chlorophyll, which is why they have to stick them on top of a different kind of cactus. I used to have a moon cactus, um, but the moon part died, so I took the bottom part, which was no longer being oh my goodness, no longer being parasitized by the moon cactus, and it grew into a big old dragon fruit cactus. So, um, yeah, yeah. Excuse me. Oh, it's that time of year. So, think of the human being, right? I think the easiest way to understand this is with the human being. Um, let's say that my I might have a number of essential characteristics. It could be something about my DNA, it could be reason, it could be speech, it could be walking upright, it could be having opposable thumbs, it could be using technology, right? It could be any number of things. So maybe those are the essential attributes. But then I, as an individual, have certain accidental attributes, right? I have brown hair. I have hazel eyes. Um, I'm tall, right? These individuate me from others in my kind class, right? So, humans have all kinds of accidental attributes, which individuate each of us from everyone else, right? Very straightforward. And these are not essential characteristics. Um, well, cultural things like about a person and their culture, where they come from, what language they speak, what religion they have, things like these would be would be examples of accidental attributes. But it's not like all accidental attributes or colors or attribute accidental attributes are um cultural, right? Like the color of somebody's hair is not cultural. Unless maybe they alter the color of their hair, right? Like according to a culture or a subculture, right? Like a goth might dye their hair black, right? Um, Something like that. Can the accidental attribute for a bigger kind be the essential attribute for a smaller kind? Well, there might be a property that is essential to something and inessential to being something else. If that's what you're saying, I suppose that's possible. Like, I guess what you're saying is, hair color is not an essential attribute that defines what a human being is, but it is an essential attribute for kind of subcategorizing, whether you're blonde, brunette, redhead, right? Oh, okay. Yeah. 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 I think, yeah. Yeah. That sounds right to me, David. Yeah. I guess it depends on which thing we take as individual, right? If you're taking the angiosperm as individual, then yeah, I guess you need fruits. Although I'm no botanist, so talk to your botany professor if you need to know the details. So yeah. Um, that's the substance attribute framework, right? There are individuals and they are primary substances. So I'm a primary substance, you're a primary substance. And we have essential attributes that make us the kind of thing we are. So, we're humans. So maybe our essential attributes are reason, language, using tools, etc., right? But we also have individual accidental attributes that individuate us, all of the things about me that are different from all of the things about all of you are my accidental attributes. And this framework, the substance attribute framework, can help us understand change. What is change? Well, change is to an individual is a change in its attributes. If I make changes to an essential attribute, perhaps I change the kind of thing that that individual is, right? For being a human, yes. Um, Whether you're, a man or a woman or some other gender, is not what makes you a human, but it is what individuates you from other humans, right? Likewise, well, race is a bad term, right? I mean, it's not like bad, but it's not a good one, right? Because racial categories, as scientists tried to define them in the 19th century, don't really exist, and they are also pretty harmful, right? So, um, uh, I mean, you could talk about culture, you could talk about ethnicity, but race is not a very scientifically grounded concept, right? There's one, human beings, despite how different we might look from one another, are not actually that genetically diverse. Um, there are like troops of chimpanzees, maybe like fewer than 100 individuals that show more genetic diversity than the human race does. It's actually pretty wild. And that's because the human race went through a number of population bottlenecks where we almost went extinct. So yeah, you can talk about ethnicity, but race, I mean, it's not like there are different kinds of people. Like every year or two, I reread the works of J.R.R. Tolkien, right? And those are different races, like the elves, the dwarves, the men, the hobbits, like those would be different races of people, right? But the human race is one race. What about chromosomes? Yeah, I would say that well, if we want to make the old sex gender distinction, then the sex part, right? The biological features, whether you have XX, XY, or some other combination, um, that would also be accidental. It's not what makes you a human. It might be what makes you male, female, or intersex, or something like that. But it's not what makes you human. Um, that said, you got to keep in mind the difference between sex and gender. Because a lot of time, most of the time, sex and gender are most of the time gender seems to like supervene on sex, but not always, right? Of course, there are trans individuals, right? So, um, but if you changed my DNA enough, I might cease to be human, right? So if you say that my DNA overall is an essential attribute to my being human, then if I changed my DNA enough, I might cease to be human. I could be a dolphin, or right, I could switch it maybe just a little bit and maybe be turned into a chimpanzee. Switch a little bit more, maybe I'm a dolphin. Switch it about 50%, you could turn me into a banana, or a banana tree, technically. Well, yeah, I guess sort of, yeah, like I guess we're saying the same thing. Like when I'm just saying DNA and you're saying chromosomes, we're saying that there's some genetic material that is in such and such a way such that I'm human and you're human, and our genetic material shares those characteristics. Yeah, we share this genome, right? And then if some mad scientist went poking around in there, they could perhaps alter you in such a way that maybe you wouldn't be human anymore, right? It's probably not possible to do this now. Although there are gene editing techniques, right? CRISPR. There's CRISPR. But could I, use CRISPR to turn myself into a chimpanzee? I mean, probably not, right? It's not practically possible. But the point is, we're imagining, right, what changing an essential attribute would do, right? If I change an essential attribute, then I'm changing the kind of thing that I am. But if I'm changing an accidental attribute, then I'm not changing the kind of thing that I am. So if we're looking at me as a human and I dye my hair purple, well, I'm still a human, right? But if I edit my genes to turn myself into an elephant, well, then obviously I'm no longer human. I'm an elephant now. So, yeah, changes in essential attributes change the kind of being that we're talking about, and changes in accidental attributes do not. Okay, time for a little bit more coffee. Oh, be right back. Okay. Oh, it's hard to get on this couch. This is a very odd couch that I have. All right. Okay, so Aristotle also kind of introduces a hierarchy of beings. Yeah. I can stop anytime I want. Actually, no, I probably can't. Yeah. So that's an accident. Yeah, if I quit coffee, yeah, yeah. If I quit coffee, I'd still be your philosophy professor. This class might not be as interesting, but I would still be your philosophy professor, right? Okay, so Aristotle introduces a hierarchy of kinds. And this is what he proposes. There are three kinds of primary substances. There are animals, plants, and then there are elements. So, of course, the elements include things like earth, air, fire, and water. Oh, don't worry, I will be well caffeinated when I'm marking. So there's no worries there. Um, uh, so elements, we understand these differently now, but like Aristotle said, there are four of them. Yeah. Well, keep in mind, I do have three TAs helping me, but I imagine that they will also be well caffeinated. So, no worries, no worries about those, no worries about the market. Okay. So there are elements, there are plants, and there are animals. And we are an animal for Aristotle. We are included in the animal category. So just like scientists today count the human being among the animal kingdom, so did Aristotle, all the way 2,000 years ago or whenever it was. Now, plants for Aristotle include everything that has what we call a nutritive soul, but not a sensitive or a rational soul. So, what is a nutritive soul? It's the part of soul that allows growth, reproduction, consuming food, eliminating waste. Um, that's the nutritive soul. And for Aristotle, right, the soul is the form of a living body. It's not like a Cartesian ghost in the machine. It's not a Platonic spiritual substance. It's not something that's going to leave your body after you die. It is kind of like the organization and function of a living body. So it's not like a mystical thing for Aristotle. It literally is like just the way matter is put together and how it works. So the nutritive soul is what plants have. Plants don't have a sensitive soul, but animals have a sensitive soul. And your sensitive soul is what allows you to sense the environment, to feel things, to see, hear. So all your senses, both what you use to detect what's happening in the world and the ones you use to introspect, like ooh, it feels warm in here. I'm really warm right now, right? That's also enabled by the sensitive soul. And it also allows movement. So animals have a nutritive and sensitive soul, but plants only have a nutritive soul. And humans have the first two, but humans also have a rational soul. Yeah, kind of a basic operating system. I mean, now a nutritive soul, like Like scientists have abandoned the idea of soul. But if you wanted to try and think of what it is in modern vernacular, it would be like metabolism, reproduction, just kind of like being alive and staying alive, right? And everything that's alive has this for Aristotle at a bare minimum. Plants, animals, fungus. Even though, fungus is fungus, Aristotle counted fungus with the plants, even though technically mushrooms, for example, are not plants. Um, but then animals that can sense the world and move about in it, they have a nutritive soul. But the human being is the rational animal, the animal with speech. So we have a rational soul. Now, Crumley adds a fourth kind of substance. So we don't just have plants, elements, animals, but also artifacts. So, computers, cars, furniture, coffee cups, things that we make are artifacts. But there are also, and this is kind of a contradictory sounding thing, but natural artifacts like um, things that creatures build. So birds' nests, beaver dams, ant hills, beehives, those are also artifacts, even though they're made by animals, not by people. Yeah, that's right. Aristotle would deny that an animal has a rational soul. And he would say that birds mimic, and this is what Descartes also says. Descartes actually mentions that, there are certain corvids like crows, magpies, ravens that speak, but they merely imitate and they don't say anything original, right? Um, but then again, there are some birds that have been shown to be quite sophisticated reasoners, like Alex, the African gray parrot, right? Who was able to work out problems. He was able to actually problem solve rather than just repeat words that he had learned. Um, so, Descartes, Aristotle would deny animals have reason, but other thinkers like Julien Offray de la Mettrie, for example, kind of like the anti-Descartes materialist philosopher of the 18th century, would say that animals have reason. In fact, he was the first person to suggest teaching apes sign language, which is pretty cool. Yeah, that's right. No, I mean, sorry, I missed your question, but Kaya got it. The sensitive soul is what allows people and animals to sense the world and move around in it. Um, those would not be artifacts unless but I could make artifacts out of them. Like ancient humans made flutes out of bones. Birds use twigs to make their nests, right? I might use rocks to build a wall. The rock isn't an artifact, but the wall is, right? Well, monkeys are not as sophisticated as apes, but like Kaya says, gorillas have been taught sign language. So have chimpanzees. Um, Monkeys are not as clever as the apes. They're still pretty clever, but not quite as clever as the great apes. Rocks would be an element. For Aristotle, he would say rocks are an element, like earth, stone, that thing. He'd just say that they're that, right? So the point of all this is that we can get this hierarchy, right? We have individuals at the bottom, and they belong to a kind. Now, the individual is the primary substance, and remember, it has attributes, both accidental and essential. The essential attributes tell us what kind of thing it is, and the accidental attributes differentiate it from other members of its kind. Kinds are a bit like families. There's animal kind, plant kind, artifact kind, an element kind. And that's basically Aristotle on substances. That's what you'll need to know for our purposes here. So, any questions about Aristotle and the substance attribute framework before we try and zip through John Locke? All right, well, let's look at John Locke's idea, which is that substance is substratum. Substratum is a Latin word. It means that which supports or holds together some various properties, right? The various properties of an object are Crumley's words. So here, substance is kind of like a thing that has properties. The properties adhere to it or adhere in it. So Locke, in his essay on human understanding, says that there must be something that holds the properties of individuals together. Because what Locke called qualities, we remember the primary and secondary qualities, right? There are qualities, primary qualities, our ideas of them resemble the objects themselves. Those are what we would also call properties. So this table is solid. I can knock on it. Objects don't just fall through it. So solidity is a primary quality. It's a quality that the object has, but it cannot exist by itself. You can't just have solidity on its own. You need a solid object, right? And it's substratum that joins properties like this together. So Locke says we accustom ourselves to suppose some substratum wherein they, the qualities, do subsist, and from which they do result, which therefore we call substance. But what is substance? Well, Locke says it is a supposition of he knows not what support of such qualities. What is a substance? We know not what. It's just whatever holds all the properties together. So when Aristotle says, I'm a substance and you're a substance, I'm a primary substance and I have these attributes. Some are essential and some are accidental. Locke is saying there is something called substance as substratum, and it's like a glue that holds properties together. But beyond what it is, but beyond that, what is it? We don't know. It's just kind of whatever sticks all the properties together. Yeah, I know, right? You're a primary substance, and you're a primary substance. Have you all seen the AI generated video of Oprah giving everyone a car? It's pretty amazing. There are cars falling from the sky. Tom Cruise is like jumping on the couch and then he just explodes and turns into a car. Like it's wild. Um yeah, I do bring it up quite often. Do not. Okay, so this is why you shouldn't use GPT for your essay because it works along the same principles, right? As this Tom Cruise exploding and turning into a car. So you don't want your paper to be the essay equivalent of one of those videos where, Tom Cruise turns into a car or Gordon Ramsay is chopping lettuce and it's like infinite lettuce or any of you don't want that, right? So that's another reason not to use Chat GPT. Um, Yesterday I saw an AI program that plays Minecraft. Oh wow. Yeah. Yeah, there's a way in which, what these generative AI programs are doing is actually kind of like what the human brain does when it's dreaming, and that's why the videos that they generate are so weird. Like I saw an AI video of a yoga class the other day, and that was just wild. Like people's arms and legs were just moving around their bodies. Like it was trippy. Yeah. But just think, all the crazy stuff that the AI that makes video does with video, you don't want that happening to your essay. So there you go. Right. Rachel asks, so Locke basically says that we don't know what substance is, or there's no way of really knowing that. But because properties have to adhere to something, we call it substance, because we have no choice but to refer to something. Yeah, basically. Um, like I say on this slide, Aristotle thinks that we can experience substance directly. Like I can look at you and be like, oh, there's a primary substance over there. That's another human being. It's Rachel from philosophy class, right? But Locke thinks that we actually infer the existence of substance, right? Like I can look at my coffee cup. For Aristotle, this is an artifact, so it's a type of primary substance. Um, But Locke would say that I infer substance because the cup has certain properties, like it's cylindrical, it contains liquid, has a handle, it's solid, keeps the coffee warm. All of these properties can't exist on their own. They need something to hold them all together. Whatever that is substratum. So properties are always kind of held together by substratum. And we don't really know what substratum is. Um, That's why Locke says, we know not what. So what is it in general? Well, I mean, if you asked Locke, he would say it's just whatever supports the properties or holds them together. We don't know what it is in and of itself. And you can do this sort of subtraction idea, right? Like take away all the properties from the coffee cup, take away the cylindricality, the hardness, um, all of the properties I just named, take all of those qualities away, and all we've got left is this idea of something that supports them or holds them all together. So this is substratum theory, and it's different um, from the substance attribute framework. So on the substance attribute framework, like I am a substance, a primary substance, and I have essential attributes and accidental attributes. If you're a substratum theorist, there is substratum. What that is, we know not what, but whatever it is, it's what helps all the properties stick together. Some think this is a reductionist view, like Michael Liu thinks this is reductionist because it reduces objects just to substratum and properties, right? We're not talking about essential characteristics. We're just collections of properties stuck to substratum or existing within substratum, right? But it might help us individuate between individuals, right? Maybe I have my own unique substratum and you have your own unique substratum, even though we can't really know much about it. But there are also some worries here. Does substratum have properties of its own? Well, we don't want to say that it does. Why? Well, it's kind of like the third man argument. If you remember the third man argument, like when we were talking about universals, right? Like, oh, excuse me, I'm sleepy this morning. So, remember the third man argument, Socrates and Parmenides having a debate, and to explain why all large objects have something in common, we invoke the form of largeness because these large objects resemble this form. But how do we explain that resemblance? Well, perhaps there's another form that resembles the first two, and but so on and so on ad infinitum, right? If we said that substratum had properties itself, then we'd need another substratum to support those properties, and so on and so on and so on. We would have an infinite regress. So substratum probably doesn't have properties itself. So all we can say about substratum is that whatever it is, it holds properties together. So maybe it can't really help us distinguish between individuals. I mean, I can say like on the previous slide, like, oh, maybe I have a unique substratum, and you have one, and go full Oprah. We all have our unique substrata. But I mean, but what is it about each of our individual substrata that individuate us, right? Um, like take two books. Maybe they're identical. Two brand new books haven't been opened yet. Same color, same number of pages. Um, we know that there are two different books, but what individuates them? I mean, they have identical properties. And how can we tell whether the substratum are different or not when all we know about substrata are that they help the properties all stick together, right? We might be tempted to say that, well, this book is over here and this book is over here. They're in a different time and place, right? But that doesn't help us because what we want is something intrinsic to these individual books that helps us to explain why they are different. We don't want something extrinsic. We want something intrinsic to explain why they are different books. So, yeah, it starts to seem like everybody's substrata and all the substrata of various objects, individual objects, might be the same. After all, it just holds the properties together. So, yeah, what makes me me if I have the same substrata as you, right? Maybe there are these bare particulars or thin particulars. Um, they might not be things in themselves, but they might make, book A and not book B. I don't know. It's a possibility, but another possibility is that we just dispense with our talk of substrata and just talk about properties. And that is what will bring us to bundle theory next time, where so today, we started with this idea of substance as primary substance, where each individual entity is a primary substance and it has essential attributes that make it a member of a kind and accidental attributes which distinguish it from other members of its kind. We went from that, the substance attribute framework, to the substratum framework, where everything is made ultimately of some substance, some substratum, which holds the properties together. But what is substratum? We know not what. What individuates my substratum from yours? We know not what. So what if we abandon the idea of substratum altogether? I mean, after all, Locke is making an inference. He's saying, well, there must be something that holds properties together, and that something is substratum. But why not just dispense with that inference? That's what Hume will do. Next time we'll see that Hume looks around and says, use your senses, okay? I'm an empiricist. I'm David Hume. I'm using my senses to know things. And I'm looking at this plant right here, and I see lots of individual properties or qualities, but I don't perceive any substance. So this plant, there's no substance. It's just a bundle of properties. And that's what bundle theory is all about. So we're going to talk about that alternative next time. And then we're going to start getting really weird. We're going to talk about the process philosophy of Alfred North Whitehead, and we're going to talk about Martin Heidegger on the being of beings. Um, yeah, substratum is abstract, right? But just remember, it's an inference. Like, there must be something that sticks all the properties together. It's not enough coffee. That's why I always refill in the middle of a lecture. Yeah, so substance is like something abstract, right? We think maybe we've got this habit because we're used to talking about things in a sort of concrete sense that, I we talk about substance as if it's material, right? Like the wood on this window frame in our everyday lives, I might think of that as a substance. I might think of glass as a substance. I might think of coffee as a substance. But in philosophy, substance is much more abstract. Substance is not a material necessarily. It's not a material. Um, it's something that underwrites or supports properties. So it's something that's really, really fundamental. Like it's a very fundamental way of talking about what exists. Um, but if you're Locke, right, and you're going with the substances substratum view, there's very little you can say about what it actually is because you're just inferring like, well, there must be something that holds all these properties together. We don't know what it is, right? But there's something, right? Kind of like how astronomers infer the existence of dark matter. They're like, well, we don't see anything out there, but there's a lot of gravity and things being affected by gravity, so there must be something out there. So dark matter, dark energy, we can't directly observe it, but we infer its existence. Substance is kind of like that for Locke. Um, So I hope that helps clarify things, but we will probably get a chance to revisit some of this, maybe better understand it when we talk about bundle theory. And that's all I have for today. So you want to make sure you read the rest of chapter 7 for next time. Are there any questions about anything before we go? Anything about I don't know, about the material, about the essay, anything like that? Hmm. Well, the essay can be in any format that you wish, but I do recommend APA format. I think APA format is just nice, and it's what I'm used to working with. So you can use whatever format, but I encourage APA. I've also made available a set of rubrics that you can find linked in the helpful materials module. I don't follow these to a T, but they do give you an idea of how your essay will be evaluated. Um, yeah, around 1,500 words, definitely no more than 1,500. The structure is given in the essay writing lecture, right? Um, you really want to make sure you have either a thesis statement or a research question, and then your essay is meant to convince me of your that your thesis is correct or that the answer to the research question that you've generated is correct. Um, yeah. Use chat. You can use ChatGPT for a topic. Check with me and also acknowledge that you used it. Like just put a little footnote like, I came up with this topic using generative AI, just so that I know. And that's fine. Um, yes. So if you get, um, no, you don't want to give opinion. You want to give an argument. Yeah, you're gonna either argue or answer a question. There aren't really any set number of points. You just need to make that argument. Like, look at how Crumley does things in the book. That's the kind of thing you want to do. Yes, you can choose a topic that's on Discord. And if you use GPT or other generative AI to generate a topic, run it by me first. Like a few people are saying, should I run it by you? Yes, because you never know. Like generative AI can still go weird, right? You don't want your essay to be Tom Cruise exploding into a car, right? You want your essay to be on a good topic, right? Yeah. Well, what I mean is like, maybe you don't have to like the content of the book or how it's written, but Crumley proceeds in a dialectical manner. So, Aristotle says this, John Locke says this, but David Hume says this, right? As if it's a giant centuries long conversation. You kind of want to do that with your paper. But there's no set number of points you have to make. You just have to build an argument with premises and a conclusion. Again, like this is covered in the essay writing video, and I literally have dozens of essay writing videos on my YouTube channel. So you can always watch a couple of them and get an idea what to do, right? Um, but yeah, if you want to run your topics by me, send me an email and I'll give you my opinion. All right, everyone. Well, we're 1 minute over the end of class, so I better get going because I have to run up to the campus and teach a different class. So I better get rolling. But I will see you all on Thursday, and I hope you have a good rest of your week. I wonder if we have any Americans in the class who are like, about the election. I know I'm going to watch the coverage tonight. Um, because I'm kind of apprehensive about that myself. Oh, okay. What does your American partner think? Looking forward to the election or nervous about it? I'd be nervous. I am nervous. Yeah, I'm like Laney. I'm nervous. I'm like, I, I don't, I can't do another 4 years of Trump again. Yeah, it was too much the first time. But anyway, let's get out of here. Take care of yourselves, everyone. I'll see you next time. Bye for now.